Hey you, I know why you're here, and I want to say this. You are not alone. Even though you might feel alone right now, there are others like you clicking on this video to find a little bit of comfort. If you stick around on this video, I'm going to share with you how we can feel a little bit less lonely. What is loneliness? Loneliness is not about being alone. Some people very much enjoy being alone. However, loneliness is the feeling of being alone and not wanting to be alone. It's when the individual experiences a longing for the connection of others, but not feeling like you have any control over it. So here's why loneliness hurts so much. Loneliness is what helps us to look at our social needs because that's what helped us to survive. Now, you would think after years of evolving that we would kind of be a little bit better at this. However, the foundations of the way that our brain functions is very much rooted back to our ancestors. We lived as tribes, we didn't do things alone, and if you ever did find yourself on your own in those times, you were less likely to survive. And so we developed social pain, which is in the case of rejection. If you find that it hurts you when you're rejected or excluded or have any of those kind of feelings, it is perfectly normal because our bodies are actually responding to that. And the problem is that after a while, loneliness will try to protect you, but this protection malfunctions. It will mean that you are less able to accurately identify emotions of other people, come across as more hostile because you tend to put up more barriers and walls, in turn pushing people away, making you look more socially awkward and colder than what you actually are. And generally you'll perceive situations in a more negative way. Do we see it as someone deliberately leaving us out, or is it something that is actually very neutral that we are kind of missing because our emotions are tied into it? Are you going into a social interaction already predicting what the outcome is going to be? If you are doing this, then this is something we need to work on, because when we are going into a situation with a bias, then naturally we're going to be looking out for that bias that confirms us. It's called confirmation bias. If you've told yourself the line of, I'm not very good at interacting with people, funnily enough, your body and your mind will kind of behave in that kind of way as well. Have you ever had a bad day where everything just seems to go wrong? A bird poos on you, your car gets scratched, you drop your favorite mug and it smashes and you're late to work. We would then just summarize that automatically as a bad day, and we're kind of then just expecting everything else to go wrong throughout the day as well. However, sometimes this means that we also miss on some of the good moments. So when it comes to loneliness, we need to look internally and think, what story are we telling ourselves? Without realizing it, when we are actually saying things, we are deciding between whether it's going to be acceptable or honest. And sometimes we end up holding back from our original thoughts because we're worried about what the other person is going to think. Therefore, sometimes we're not even being our real selves with people. And by not being your real self, sometimes even when you're around lots of other people, that's why we can still feel lonely. Because we don't have that same connection with them, it can very much make us feel isolated. So that's why you can experience loneliness when you're in a very social setting, because if those aren't the people that you bond with, or maybe you get along with them but they're still not very much alike to you, then you'll often find yourself kind of fading in and out a little bit. Maybe it could be that your values have changed and you're not expressing yourself in a way that is true to yourself anymore. Sometimes we play these characters because we feel we need to, because we've associated that with our character, and so if we come out of character, people are going to get confused on who we are, and we don't want other people to think that we're a fraud or a liar. And so as we play these characters, the world responds to that as well. Remember when I said about confirmation bias? Well, when we are more confident in ourselves, we tend to attract people. Have you ever noticed when someone just has a vibe and you feel like really drawn to that kind of person? Have a think why that might be. Is it because they're doing something that feels more admirable to you? Or is it just because they have a sense of confidence and air about them that you think you want to be like? And that's why we tend to draw towards certain people, is because they tend to have a behavior of something that we feel like we're missing and we want a part of that. And so with confidence, it's not really about being arrogant and saying, I'm the best. It just means to be comfortable in your own skin, to admire your own skills, and to see that you are worthy just because you are. You don't need to struggle to justify that you are deserving. One way to be confident within yourself is just to recognize, what are you connected to? Maybe your interests have changed and now your friends have changed because their interests stayed the same while yours kind of drifted away. That doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you or those people, it just means that you've kind of grown towards a different route. Sometimes we need to find a different tribe, and that means going out and finding different people that now align with our values and beliefs and interests, and sometimes we can feel like we actually fit in a little bit better with these people than our old friends. And soon you will find yourself going from the odd one out to finding where you fit in. So when it comes to loneliness, it's actually a very normal thing, and this is something that we need to accept. You might think that when you're experiencing loneliness that it actually means that there's something wrong with you, but actually that's not the case. It's kind of funny how we all seem to believe that no one kind of understands us or has that same feeling when so many people actually do share that same feeling. It's a state of mind. But what we can try to do is to recognize if there's a cycle. And believe me when I tell you, this is some deep work. You really have to ask yourself these questions and make sure that you are answering in a very neutral way, not in a condescending way, and definitely not in a way that you're basically lying to yourself as well. And here's something else that we can do. Sometimes giving is just as rewarding as receiving. How good would it feel if someone told you how you made their day just by doing something very, very small? Sometimes we want people to be compassionate to us. However, we are not restricted to do the same for other people. And when we do this for other people, we can still feel worthy and appreciated. It is the simplest form of social interaction, and you never really have to have a huge background to be able to be just nice to people. This is why we help, because not only are we helping others, but we're also helping ourselves too. And remember, there are no perfect friendships. Friendships are messy. They can be awkward sometimes, and so the sooner that we get more comfortable with that, then the better. To find out more about this, then make sure that you watch the next video, because I was making these mistakes with my friendships and maybe you might be making them too. So click on the video to learn more.